something that's, kind of bitchy.
Pretty bitchy.
Bitchy? I know.
It's just, bitchy.
Well, first of all, you're a little bitchy. That's next level bitchy.
Welcome to Bitchy History, the irreverent history podcast where one history professor gets to bitch about history and the impact it has on the world today. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. It's not going to be Mother's Day when you watch this episode, because I'm not going to get the editing done that fast, obviously. But it is Mother's Day as we are recording the episode, and as a result, I've decided to have my mom on the podcast as a special guest. So this will be a new thing. I'm also going to be doing the same thing with Father's Day. My dad's going to be on the show for that month as well as a special guest, and I like to bring them on. I'm liking to bring them on here because I've actually told lots of their stories and things like that to my students when I teach history, because it's really nice to illustrate, real life people who've lived through real events and how they affected them and things like that. So I've told lots of my mom's stories to my students, but I haven't actually told your stories to people on the podcast, really. Like, I don't know, there might be one or two of them that I've vaguely mentioned, but I haven't really gone in depth on them. So, and who better to actually tell the story than you? So, and I spent a lot of time, my community history project class last semester talking about like interviewing your family and interviewing people about their life stories and things like that. So, so this is my mom.
Hi, Meredith, and I just want to say that I am very proud of the work that you do, of revealing things, and I've got to say some of the most heroic heroes I can think of are whistleblowers, and Meredith is a whistleblower of sorts. She brings daylight to dark subjects and that need revealing, and I myself have been a somewhat of a whistleblower in the past. I can tell you some of the stories, and I've been, my own mom and dad have likened me to a bulldog who gets a hold of something and never lets go. So I come from good stock, good hearty stock, and Meredith does too.
That's, the title of the podcast is Bitchy History, and I came by that naturally, honestly. It's genetic.
And I approve.
Exactly. You approved of the title. So, yeah, and it's like my friend Tad, who says that I have the personality online of somebody swinging a baseball bat at a...
Well, sometimes it takes it.
I gotta do it.
I've got to say there's probably ways to get people's attention and get people's cooperation and enlighten people in kinder and gentler ways, but I have not found that way, and I have not found it to be so, and I just have to maybe scare people sometimes by my force of will. And
I think maybe men. I think men sometimes get the ability. Well, yeah, but I think men get the ability to try to be kind and gentle when they try to change people's ideas. But when women are kind and gentle, it's just oh well, we don't have to take them seriously.
That's a whole topic we can get into.
The whole thing we'll get into. Yeah.
So I was born a long time ago, and I was a late bloomer. I went to optometry school when I was around 32, which is kind of a late bloomer for those kind of things. And so I was married, had a child, and I say that my optometry degree was my second child. And then Meredith was born the last year of the optometry school. And I have some stories to tell about optometry school, being an older student. They didn't like older students because we had more opinions and we demanded some sort of respect, when the other students were just so happy to be there, and they took any kind of abuse that they wanted to dish out, said please more. And so I was in, after Meredith was born, she was born at the beginning of my 4th year of optometry school. That 4th year, they just piled things on us a lot. We had lots of outside clinics. I couldn't just sit in class, do homework, take notes, be in clinic in school, but They sent us around the community doing work and to people's homes to do home exams and all kinds of things. So I was in a clinic, and at the end of the day, the clinic professor walked me out. A supervisor we had walked me out, and as I'm putting my equipment away in my car to go home, she says, "Karen, you can't be a mom and an optometrist both. You have to choose one. You have to choose one." And I'm like, I already have a baby and a nearly teenager.
right?
I have 2 children. I already have this baby. And what are you trying to do? So I went home and I was very depressed for a few days, and then I got angry. I got very, very angry. I went into school and I told the dean, I said, do you know why I'm here? Other people are here to make money. They're here for whatever they can get out of life, but I'm here to improve the life of my family. And I will not go back to that clinic. I will not talk to that teacher ever again. And
because
I will
nobody
not be
ever
back in that
asked.
clinic.
Nobody ever said to like male students, you can't be a dad and an optometrist at the same time.
They
Nobody
did
would
not
do
bother.
that.
They did not bother the male students when
They're
they
fine.
went on vacations. They went on ski trips and they went on vacations. They were married and they had kids. Nobody ever bothered them at all. Believe me, it's a pretty tight knit group. There was about 195, maybe
It's a pretty
95
small
students.
school, yeah.
Small. And we were in classes together a lot, and we knew each other. We talked, and the men got by with whatever, and the women were probably about 30% of the class were women. There was a small number of older students like myself who'd been in careers or had a life before the optometry school, and we, I don't know. I think that's the way schools were back then, and they probably still are that way. They think the students are inferior, and they can, you're there to learn and to be whipped into shape and to be broken and remade into their image that they perceived that they wanted to have. And so they worked with me. They adjusted my schedule, and I did graduate, and I didn't have to go back to that class anymore. And but that was one of the things that, I just had a come to Jesus meeting with the dean.
You're like, no,
and
we're
I
not
wasn't
doing that.
afraid to. And I had several other occasions like that where I had to get in their face and say, no, this isn't going to happen. This is rude. And I remember, this is kind of funny. So after you finish school, graduate school, I'm sure some of you have had this experience. They start sending you letters inviting you to donate money to the school. And I said,
what kind of crack addict relative?
And I actually sent them back a note. And I said, you fire a couple of teachers and I will give you money. But until I get notification that you've fired them, I will never give you a penny, because of the abuse that we suffered. I, in particular, suffered. And anyway, mean. But I believe I changed things. In the class after mine, the class after mine, the very next class, we had, in our school, they had this nice little program where you kind of took the entering class, the next class. Like when I was in second year, the new first years coming in, they assigned me a student to kind of help and see if they needed help and show them the ropes and things like that. And she had a baby, and she had a baby.
So they gave you
and you know what? They had a little place set aside for her where she could go in and lock the door and pump.
Mm-hmm.
She had cooperation, and they treated her nice as far as I know, and they never did that for me. So I think that some of the experiences that we earlier students went through did change things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back then, like I mentioned, we had about 30% probably were female, and so it went on every year that's happened. It's gotten more and more females. Now I understand that it's almost 100% female. The optometry schools are.
Wow.
So
they don't like that. Because there's lots of like professional organizations that you can join, or things like that you can join when you're working. Because if you're a lawyer, you can join. You're in the bar association, and you go to like mixers, and you're involved with that kind of world. So optometry also has those, right? You go to CE, continuing education, and stuff like that. But there's also, is it okay if I name drop the website?
Go ahead.
Oh yeah,
They can't
what are they gonna do? What are they gonna
do?
So there's there's a website called OD Wire, which is basically
I love it. It's
forum.
great.
Yeah, it's a great website. But there's a lot of people. I know that a lot of people think that the internet would be a better place if people had to put their real names on their ideas and the things that they say. But you have to put your real names on this website, and it hasn't helped.
They
hasn't
verify
helped.
that you're an actual optometrist where you went to school, and this is your identity, and so all of us have our names attached.
Right, so you can look these people up, you can know where they work, where they teach. Some of them are teaching in optometry schools and things like that. You know who they are, and they say the most unhinged, crap all the time. She's telling me about it all the time. Anyway, yeah.
I'm always bringing it. Meredith, this is what so-and-so said. She knows the names.
I know the names now,
and I said, should I say anything? Should I say anything? You say what you want to, Mom.
Say it.
I said,
say it.
Read this. This is what I want to say. Yeah, y'all go for it. So a while back we had a thing. I can't remember how it got started, but the thing that came out was that the male optometrists were saying, how do we get more, literally, the words exactly, how do we get more men in optometry?
There's too many women.
There's too many women. They're taking over. We have to have more, basically white men, because there's only like 1% of optometrists are black anmen.
Right, yeah.
I've heard.
The
black optometrist has said that.
Yeah.
And it's like, we need more men, and they're always denigrating women on, well, they just want off more time, and they have to take time out for their kids, and they have to take time off. And childbirth, I mean, it just ruins a practice when a woman has to take off to any time at all for childbirth. And it's like, oh, I get so angry, and I get tired, and I go on little sabbaticals from the website, and then I come back, I see something that I absolutely have information that I first-hand information that will make their lives more, shall I say, woke? Maybe more woke, and so I put it in there, and then I get attacked again, and
they get mad, and
then I block them.
Well, remember the thing that was really crazy a while back that happened was when they put that new moderator. They got a new moderator for the forum, and it was a woman, and the response to her coming on was wild.
She's not an optometrist, but she's been in the industry as long as I've been an optometrist, and she's worked in, she's been editors of optometry journals and things. She's well respected, well known. She's been around the block, and she's a charming person. She's much friendlier and more happy-go-lucky than I am.
Yeah.
And
she hasn't been quite as jaded.
Really, and I sent her a private message, and I said, "Boy, that came unwound really fast."
Yeah, that went off the rails. That escalated quickly. I mean, really.
Welcome, but so you be tough, because I know you need to. And
because some of the stuff that we're saying was it was blatantly sexist. I mean, it was not even just like, oh, we don't like her. We don't like her because she's a woman, and we don't want her having anything to say about how the forum is run.
How dare she?
Like, how dare she be involved with this when she's a woman? Ugh, terrible. And they do the same stuff. Like you said, there are a few black optometrists on that forum too, and they get the same treatment. And it's the same thing of like, oh, there's too many people of color in optometry school, or there's too many, and it's like,
too many women, especially.
What is wrong? Yeah, too many women especially, but what is wrong with you people that you are saying this stuff openly? And I've several times I've told you, like, is this person teaching at an optometry school? And you're like, yes. And I was like, I think we need to write a letter. Like, I don't think this person should be allowed to teach.
I've just got to say, the OD community in general are the people who founded it. It was an optometrist and his physician's son who founded it, and they are wonderful. They're wonderful. Yeah. They're even-handed. They're wonderful. They're supportive, and they try to keep people involved in what the purpose is. Like helping us deal with the problems of optometry.
Yeah, and like sharing real information about how to deal with you guys were having problems with an insurance company, and you guys shared the information with everybody else so they would know what the insurance companies were doing. Yeah, and it's good stuff, but there's a subset of people on there that are just toxic. They're toxic.
Yeah.
Dude bros. That's what they are.
I have a lot of them blocked. So
yeah, well, yeah.
I tried.
But then they unblocked him at one point, I think. Remember, like, it was the guy that you had. I remember you saying had a guy blocked, and then they had booted him from the forum.
On my statement, because I've got you blocked.
Right, because they blocked him, and then I think they deleted him from the forum entirely, and then they let him back on, and he wasn't blocked anymore, so he was back on there with his bullshit again, which is just very frustrating, very very frustrating.
Super Christians, there's that one in particular was a super Christian, which honestly gives God a black eye. God and Jesus both black eyes.
Like what are you doing? What are you doing? So you are a bad representation.
He's blocked anyway.
Yeah, Christian probably. I want to say, I don't remember that guy specifically, but like Christian nationalist vibes, probably he gives
initials off. JK, which I feel is fitting.
Yeah, it's a big joke.
He is a joke.
He is a joke. But yeah, so if you have an optometrist whose initials are JK, I don't know. I'm just saying
Judge
he
him.
might not be a great guy. I'm not saying it's your JK, but what is it about the initials JK? JK Rowling also, right? Like, maybe the initials JK are just a whole mess for everybody. I don't know.
Well, my name is Karen, so.
Yeah, it's not fair though. She's not like that.
Oh,
like,
but am I? Maybe I.
well, you are, but not in the way that like Karens are. Like, you don't go after people in grocery stores or like checkouts or stuff like that.
I try to be very supportive to people. When I do a child's exam,
yeah,
I have in the back of my mind, this kid, and I tell the kids too, I said, you don't want to close any doors in your life. You want to be open to, learn everything you can in school. You could be president someday.
Right.
You could be a surgeon someday. You could do anything. I want those kids to know, and I'm going to help them see.
Well, yeah, and
I'm going to and encourage them to just do the best they can in school and learn and I try to be supportive, especially women who, like me, are late bloomers. They're starting a new project later in life, and they've got a little water under the bridge, and I give them advice from me. I tell them the story about optometry that I just told you about
that one,
school, and I tell them, if you're having trouble in a subject, go to the teacher. Do all the homework, go to the teacher, lay it out, and get help. You'll get help. Get help any way you can.
I wish more college students would do that. I can't even. Last semester, it was like, you're failing the class, and yet you've never come to my office hours even once, and I don't know what to do for you.
Well, I don't know.
But some people don't bother trying at all. But unfortunately,
especially the older ones. I mean, there's a lot of they just really don't want you to be there. I don't know why. They don't want the older students. And
well, I know I went to grad school later too, because I finished my undergrad later, and I was never treated that way by my professors. Like they never acted like I didn't belong there or anything like that. That was never really the treatment, though. I mean, I guess my age didn't really enter into discussions very often, so they weren't really like being like, okay, these people are a normal age and these people aren't. Mm-hmm. But I did feel like I kind of an odd man out anyway, because it's like you had all this experience and life experience and things like that, and then you're in class with students who are like 22, 23 years old, and they're just like, what? And I'm like, oh God, you're such babies. Like, you just don't know anything about the real world at all, and I don't want to...
I feel like you blew a lot of minds in class discussions sometimes.
Yeah, I tried to... Well, I mean, since I was in Europe, I did try to keep it cool, because I didn't want to be the ugly American. I didn't want to be the first American who's like, I'm going to give you my opinion on everything, but... sometimes I had to, right? I had to enter in and explain it. But yeah, like, you've always got the wildest stories, the wildest ones. So I'm trying to think of what the one is that some of the ones I always tell my students, that way you can kind of tell them, and I mean, the one that always comes to mind is the library card story, because I always end up telling that story at some point. Mm-hmm. So the library card story. Tell the library card story, because it's wild.
I was much younger then, let's say 24, 25 years old, and I was married and pregnant, and we had moved to another state, another town, another state, and being a
I feel like it's important to note where it was, what the state it was in, because it is very prototypical for this. This was Louisiana, so this story should surprise no one, because they're always behind the times. But
and I'm going to write down a note for you to ask Dad some of the stories. He was a teacher in public school in Louisiana. You need to hear these stories, but they're his stories, not mine. But anyway, I went to the library to get myself a library card. I won't say stay-at-home mom. Wasn't a mom yet. I was pregnant, and I wasn't working, and went to the library to get a library card so I could check out books, keep myself busy. I've always been a big reader, and so they were going to give me a library card in my husband's name, and I said, "Excuse me, I want a library card in my name." And they said, "Well, this is the way we do things." And I said, "Well, I'm very happily married, but what if I died and he gets remarried?"
Right, yeah.
And that remarried woman is going to have that same name. That's not me. That's his wife.
Like, you're a human being.
I ought to have a library card in my own name. And I don't know who won that battle. That was a long time ago, but
was just a ridiculous
But
situation, right?
It's just ridiculous.
It's a ridiculous situation to be like, oh, you can't have it in your... Like,
And
I am a real human person, and this was years after...
It wasn't a credit card. It wasn't a bank account.
If
it wasn't a car.
If it had been a credit card, you would have been able to sue them, because this was after the Credit Equality Act. Like, that was like 73, 74. This was later than that. So...
A free, publicly supported lending library, a free lending library. I could not get a library card in my name.
And like, what were they worried about? You weren't going to be able to pay your library fines of 10 cents a day if you didn't? Like, you could pay that with pocket change.
I think it was 2 cents back then.
Right, it was 2 cents a day back then. So it's like, what are they so worried about? Oh, you're not going to be able to pay. You don't have a job, so you're not going to be able to pay your fines. Like,
clearly, that wasn't money related. It was
just
putting
sexism.
you in your place.
It was putting you in your place. If you don't have an identity, you have given up your identity as a fully formed human being. When you got married, you don't have that anymore. Yeah. Because they also didn't do that to, like, if I had been alive, they wouldn't have said that I, as a child, couldn't get a library card in my own name. Maybe. I don't think they would have said it has to be in your dad's name.
I can't remember those.
I don't think so, but
it didn't inflame and outrage me, so it must have been normal by that time that you were getting your library card.
Must have been, because I remember getting a library card in my own name. It was a children's card, and there was like a limit on how many books you could take out. That was
best. They were the best. Even as a young mother, I'd take my kids for the story time or to look at all the books, and gives you a chance to look at all the children's books and hang out in the children's section and not be weird. Because I love children's books and the illustrations and the stories. It's beautiful.
And it's wonderful, because then you get the opportunity also to have air conditioning, which you didn't always have when I was growing up. That's not always been a thing. So
many times we've lived in very hot places with no AC.
Or, the electric was out or whatever. We didn't have AC because of that. And it was like, okay, we're going to go to the library today. That's the new thing.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that lately, because, when the AC wasn't working, we had our air conditioner mess up a couple of weeks ago when we first started running it. First turned it on for the summer, and it wasn't working. And I was like, oh, where am I going to go to get work done? What am I going to do? I'm going to have to go to like Starbucks, and I'm a bunch of money, and I did end up going to Starbucks and buying like 3 or 4 lattes and sitting there and working. But I realized afterwards, I was like, I could have gone to the freaking the library is like 4 miles away. I could have gone to the library and had free Wi-Fi and not paid anything for it. What would? Because I just forgot that libraries exist apparently. So that's the whole thing. I mean, I get all my books online.
The library
now,
sale, the used bookstores.
The used books, the big used books.
The half price day. Goodwill used to have.
That's where I get all my books now. I don't actually go to the library anymore. But
wonderful books.
I gotta try that out again soon. I think I might get more work done at the library. It's possible. I might. I've got too many distractions in this office.
You might make more friends. You don't make more friends at home.
I don't need more friends.
Just dog and cat, right?
Just got you and the dog and the cat and Dad. That's it.
Where are they anyway? Where are the dog and cat?
The dog's right there. The cat's
she's in the garage
causing trouble.
She chose to be.
She likes the garage a lot these days, but
she's.
Yeah. So the library card story always like blows my students' minds. I think I remember I don't remember if I told that my first semester teaching to my first crop of American history students, and I think I did, but I remember telling it in my women's history class, because we were talking about the Credit Equality Act in the 70s, and I was like, and that didn't even really solve the problem, because you still had all these different states and different organizations that just genuinely did not view married women as fully formed human beings for some reason. Like, they just didn't see them. And of course that goes back, I've done episodes in the past talking about the different laws that actually did destroy women's personhood, when they got married and things like that. They didn't really have personhood as a married woman under British common law and things like that. But it's so weird to think of that still being the case in America in the 20th century and that still happening. But I mean, it's not like it's changed that much now.
Like we have discussed, and the things that we thought were solved have just opened up a whole new festering thing, and we realized it never was solved, and maybe it went underground for a while. So recently, a news article popped up about, I think I might have told you about this, about a woman who was an optometrist, and she'd been an optometrist several years, and she'd worked at this one clinic for 4 or 5 years, quite a long time, and she fell pregnant.
Oh no.
Oh dear. So she was also the kind of person, kind of like me, who says she's going to stand up for the workers' rights and her rights, and that she was saying we need to restructure how we pay the workers and the optometrists, because anyway, it was a pretty big clinic. It had about 5 or 6 optometrists, I think. And so when she came back, the first day back after having her baby, and they didn't pay her a penny, I believe the story is, they never didn't pay her a penny of they just allowed her to be off. And then she took vacation time, and she was off a certain amount of time, and she financially arranged that she had enough money to live. I mean, she was married to, I presume, and to be off, I don't know, 6 months or something like that. But anyway, she arranged it, and she covered it for herself, and they didn't pay her anything.
No maternity leave.
No
why would we do that?
Leave at all. And then the very first day, they canceled her a book of patients. They canceled her book of patients. They brought her into the office, and they fired her. And they fired her for being disrespectful to the employees. So, you know, a non-event. And she was asking for time to pump breast milk, some time at work, a slightly reduced schedule for about 3 days, and then use some of her vacation days to have an extra, like maybe work 4 days a week for a
so
couple
she
more
could
weeks
keep,
or something.
you know,
Just to kind of ease back into the schedule after she's, you know, had a baby. And
nothing ridiculous.
and so they fired her. And so this is ongoing. She's filed a lawsuit. She got another job. Things go on. So this was in I'm not sure when all this happened, 2022 maybe.
It was recent.
Yeah,
really
it was very
recent. Yeah.
Very, very recent. So back when Meredith was a youngster, she was about 6 years old, I fell pregnant.
Oh no. Oh no.
Babies. Huh. Well, I always wanted like 3 kids, and she was my third. My third. This one. So I was working for a Pearl Optical, and when I got the job, they knew I was pregnant, and I said, and they were slightly concerned about it. I said, give me 2 weeks. After the baby's born, give me 2 weeks. I'll be back at work. So 2 weeks, I was back at work. They had replaced me. They just cut my schedule back to very, very minimal. I couldn't afford food for my family. I couldn't afford milk. I couldn't afford what I needed for my family. So what did I do? I got another job. We moved houses. We moved cities. We moved to another city about 60 miles away. And I kept going, but that's the way we handled it back then. But that's wrong, you know? That's wrong to treat a woman that way.
And the way that they did that, I mean, like, honestly...
They could have told me. They could have, Well,
they wouldn't have told you because, again, like, we were just talking about this the other night. I was like, I'm pretty sure they did all of that very intentionally the way they did it because they wanted you to quit your job. Because if you quit your job, you have less of a chance of filing a wrongful termination lawsuit over pregnancy because that was, like, there had been laws passed by then. That was, in the 70s, like 70s and 80s, we saw, like, passage of laws for discrimination against pregnant women. And if they had fired you right after, like, not hired you because you were pregnant or fired you after you gave birth or anything like that, you could have sued them. But they did, what's really sad about this is that, I mean, a lot of things are problematic with it, but one of the worst things about it is that somehow the businesses today are stupider in how they handle wrongful termination.
See, this was close to 30 years ago. A good solid 25 plus years ago, and it's still happening.
It's still happening. Yeah, it still happens. And they were just incredibly more dumb about how to approach that with a modern situation than they were then. Like they handled it in a way that tried to make sure that you couldn't sue them. Which
it's sad that the way that people will be treated as human beings has to be legislated, and that people just don't do it because it's the decent thing to do and the right thing to be, the right way to be.
And you came back after 2 weeks. I want to know.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And let me note, I'm going to note this.
Okay.
It was a 12-pound baby. 12 pounds.
She was 12 pounds. And
you didn't have an epidural, did you?
I didn't have, it was natural. Because I felt like that was the healthiest way to give a child a start. In life
at the time, I mean, I don't think
I have changed my opinions on lots and lots and lots of things, and now it's kind of like,
Well, if you want the pain,
if you need the drugs for whatever
take the drugs.
situation
Well, and I remember
that you have going
one of the
on.
things that you were also really worried about. I remember you telling me once that you were worried about the epidural because you were very paranoid about the babies getting like switched or something like that. I remember you saying you wanted to be conscious,
alert
and be like, that's my baby. I've seen my baby, and I'm gonna know if you switch my baby.
I memorized every child. I said, I remember what this baby looks like. You're not gonna fool
So
me.
it wasn't even necessarily just about health. It was like, I need to be sober and in the moment, so I know that you don't try to switch my baby with somebody else. Which, like, I want to say, oh, it's a little paranoid, but again, it happens. It does happen.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not the worst, not the craziest paranoia you could have
When
about a
Meredith was
situation.
born, when Meredith was born, so many stories I could tell.
Oh,
But when
God.
Meredith was born, she was such a nice baby. She was born in the middle of the day, not in the middle of the night. I went through labor during the day, and
You guys did have to drive several hours from home to the hospital, though.
But she was born, and I memorized her, and then they were taking her off to the nursery, and I tell my husband, go with her. Don't take your eyes off of her. Stay with her.
Keep an eye on her right there.
I'm fine. Leave me alone. Just go with her. Don't stay with me.
Very concerned. I was very concerned that I was going to be kidnapped or switched with some other baby. I don't know. And obviously I was not. I'm always told that I sound like my mom. And when you guys see my dad and he comes on the show, it's obvious I'm related.
We're honestly genetically.
We've got a lot of facial similarities. Like, yeah, every time I answer the phone and somebody's expecting her, they think it's her. Like, so. But we have very similar voices.
Do we have more time? Do you want more story?
Oh, we can do way more. Yeah.
So, do you want the rest of the birth of the third child's birth?
The third childbirth? Yeah. Go ahead. Let's do it.
Here's some more story. So, they replaced me with a male optometrist. The male optometrist, a few years later, a few years later, I'm working at my job that I got after I lost that job, and I hear some things, some very interesting things. So back then, and today, we can have a DEA number.
Just to write, narcotics prescriptions.
Right, narcotics. Yeah. There's a lot of pain with eye things, and, we could write a narcotic, and so there was, this doctor had a DEA license, DEA number, and he was writing coworkers prescriptions for narcotics, and they would take them to the pharmacy and fill them, and then bring them back to him for his personal, I don't know what he did with them.
Personal use. It could have been a pill mill, but it probably was his own use.
He could have been using them. So I just dial the state board and give them put a little bug in their ear. And I said, this is what I heard. I've got no proof. I can tell you who told me, and I can tell you
somebody
who told them.
To it.
And it ought to be pretty easy for you to look into. Well, yes, they followed him for quite a while. He had to have drug treatment plans, and he eventually lost his license.
Karma.
So
Karma.
one more little thing I can add to this is the optical company who fired me, or pushed me out, let's say, effectively fired me. At one point, I got to tell them the hell off. I got to rip them up one side and down the other, and it felt good. So anyway.
Yeah, that is good. That is very good. Yeah.
So their doctor in this new town, they had two opticals and one in the new town where I was working, and once in a while I do fill in for that doctor, so I would be in that office.
You knew what was going on.
Right next door to the ones who fired me. And I just, for some reason, I can't remember the circumstances, but I went in their office and told them off.
Sometimes you got to tell people off.
Sometimes you got to. Maybe I shouldn't have, but it sure felt good. So apparently I should have.
It was
they needed to know that people noticed.
Exactly, people noticed, and also it's like what that letter of resignation that I wrote recently, where I was just like, I could just write like a standard letter, but I think I'm gonna just go into the details about why I'm quitting this job, like the details of like underpay and the lack of support and lack of like, obviously you guys don't give a shit about educational standards for students, like all of those things. I was like, and I think that's probably why the head of my department won't respond to my emails. I don't think he's happy about that. He did before anyway, but still, I think he's a little bit, had his feelings hurt just a little tiny bit.
Take a lesson from me. Sometimes it's slow in coming, but you may get a chance to
Might get a
curse
chance.
him out face to face someday. It could happen.
It might. It could happen. Who knows? Yeah.
So I sound vindictive and all, but really, I'm a very...
I think you have to be vindictive sometimes.
I try to be a nice... You know what? I try to be nice to the nice. And that doesn't say a lot for my...
There's not that many people you can be nice to.
But, some people just need to be brought up short because they're being... not nice.
Being jerks. Yeah.
And a lot of those people are men. So... Let me I'd like to say one more thing.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, one more thing. So, all of my life, my parents supported me. They thought I was smart. They encouraged me to make good grades. They were always my cheerleaders. And I always thought, I can work hard and always make good grades. I was good at making grades. And I tried to be that way in my job, in my raising my kids and teaching them those same values. Work hard. I've actually said this. Why does it matter if you have to work twice as hard for the same
thing,
return as a man? Okay, I can work twice as hard. I'm that good. I can work twice as hard. Mm-hmm. Until one day it just hit me. Even if you work twice as hard, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get the respect. You shouldn't have to work twice as hard, and you're going to be disrespected for like the ideas about women taking off too much time for picking up their kids at school or childcare, or if they've got a sick kid or having a baby for Finn. God forfend. Oh. Men also they don't like working 40, 45, 50, 80 hours a week. They don't like that. A successful man gets to cut back on that. But a woman who cuts back on some of these hours, there's just lazy. And a man is successful for doing the same thing.
Right, and of course,
the same place in life. And so that's when I became a little bit more militant. Yeah. And I think we became militant at the same time.
We did. I think we really did. I mean, it was around 2016. It was the whole, everything there. I mean, I think a little bit before that, too, but, leading in, it was, 2016, and after, it was,
it's like...
Everyone sucks.
Why do we have to prove our worth when we're human beings and nobody... we shouldn't be treated this way. And, when it comes down to it, also, people give crap to women about taking time off to take care of their kids when they're sick or pick them up from school or do any of those things. But I'm like, okay, but the other problem here is that men don't do those things, right? They don't do it because they don't think that it's their job. It is, even if they're both employed and both making money, and, maybe even the wife's making more money than them, they still think that somehow that's mom's job. So they have to a single dad, they'll get their mom.
They'll
get the grandma to come in and do it. They'll get an aunt. They'll get a sister to do that.
And they'll also get all the laud, all these applause for being a single dad and taking care of their kids, But any dad who, and if they do take off some time, they're like, oh, well, your wife's making you babysit? It's like, no, you're not babysitting. It's your kid. That's your responsibility to do. Taking care of your child is not babysitting. It's not.
So when I got married, I've been married one time and still married.
Still married. It's not like one time and then she kicked him and then she buried him under the rose bushes. No, he's still here. No, that's my dad.
We're still married. And I got married pretty young. I think my parents were a little disappointed me in there and in that. But he was just the most different male person I'd ever known. Mm-hmm. He was and we did things together. If we had yard work to do, we'd do it together. If we had cooking to do, we'd do it together. We did things together.
Right.
And he would, in fact, during optometry school, he did all the shopping. He cooked every meal because I was studying and
took care
all
of
the
the kids. He was the stay-at-home dad. Really, yeah.
Well, and besides working when I was home. So,
exactly, yeah.
And then I think that's one reason you were late to the game of feminism, because you thought it was all right.
Good. That's what I told people before. I was like, women. I was always like, well, feminists must have something wrong because they're always complaining about men, and they're like, men don't pull their own weight, and they treat women so badly, and they're doing all this. But I don't see my dad doing that, so men can't be that bad. And then I entered the real world, and I was like, holy shit, no. This is just different. My dad's just different. He's built different, and there's something else going on here, right?
Honestly,
this is a major problem.
Honestly,
I remember you telling me once that one of the reasons that you, obviously you married him for a lot of reasons, but, one of the reasons was that you knew he wasn't expecting you to, be his maid, right? He wasn't gonna, expect you to, drop out of school and start, doing his laundry and cooking his meals and treating you like you're,
So this was
a trad wife, right?
We met in college, in junior college, and so we had a few classes together. The classes we weren't in together, we had the same teachers, just at different times. So we were in English, freshman English and psychology together. And so I kind of had my eye on him a little bit. I had my eye on him a little bit. And then we had a test, and he and I, well, he broke the curve, and one other person broke the curve.
And it was you.
And it was me. And he figured that out. And that's when he noticed.
And you're like, oh, you're smart.
So that's a keeper, right? That's a keeper. He
wasn't mad about it. He wasn't like, oh,
wasn't mad about it.
I'm like, I broke the, and then this girl did too. It was like, no, oh, she's smart. I like her. You know, it's a different response.
Let's talk.
A bit of a different, and then you kind of stalked him a little bit. And then
did.
You got, it's a little stalking.
Before it was called stalking, I believe.
Well, you weren't doing it because you wanted to like murder him. So
I'm not sure. Even if it were called stalking, I would have done anything any differently. But
yeah. You got away with it though. I mean, you kind of threatened some girls off him, intimidated them to leave him alone so you could have first pickings. But there's nothing wrong with that. You didn't like tie him up in your basement or anything. So
I was just around all the time. I knew his schedule, and when he got out of class, I happened to be there. Who knew?
Yeah, happened to be
there.
I
was passing by.
So it's like it's kind of stalking, but he didn't mind it, so it's not really stalking, right?
It's cute, isn't it?
It's cute then. It's a rom-com. It's not.
It's a rom-com.
Right. It's cute when it's done to rom-com, not cute when it's done to Criminal Minds episode. Different context.
And there is a shotgun involved, but I won't get into that.
Yeah, there was that. I'll have Dad tell that story.
Yeah, Dad can tell that story.
I'll have him tell that when we do an episode. Yeah.
Shotgun and teaching
and the teaching in Louisiana. Yeah, we'll do those. Yeah. So one things I wanted to do also is kind of ask you about some of the major kind of events that happened during, major historical events that happened during your life.
Landing on the moon, right? JFK, like all that kind of stuff. So I was thinking, I'll just ask you a few of these kind of like as like rapid questions.
What's right? Like what do you remember about him?
Mm-hmm.
What that kind of stuff. And
how it affected
me. It'll be, how it affected you. So landing on the moon. What about that?
I was a kid, and I was sitting on the floor in the living room watching the black and white TV, and I was just like, I want to be an astronaut. How can I be an astronaut?
Like, what do I do? What do I do to go do this?
This was great. I was a big fan.
Yeah.
All through. The space race started when I was a very young kid in elementary school, and I was probably middle school about the time the landing on the moon happened, or Neil Armstrong, and I was a big fan. I wrote plenty of term papers on the rockets and the things like that. I loved it.
I know Dad probably has more answers for this one, but since I'm going to ask you about it anyway, integration. Because you're a little younger than Dad, but you probably still remember some of that.
Yeah, I guess I grew up in a when I was young, pretty whitish area probably.
So you didn't notice it as much?
Well, in elementary school, honestly, I didn't notice it. When I got into middle school, 7th grade, I started an integrated school. Mm-hmm. So it was, we lived in a town with Black people, but I guess we divided up by neighborhoods,
right?
The local
redlining and all of that, yeah.
And so some of my teachers were Black, and I don't think it was I didn't look at it as a big deal.
Yeah.
I didn't even.
A lot of people.
But I will say this. Yeah. I mentioned this to you. We were in classes, very very large classes, but we were kind of divided up by, I guess.
Whatever.
They didn't have SAT scores, but anyway, the scores and all. And so maybe we wouldn't have very many Black students in each class.
Because you were in the advanced classes.
So, so and for whatever reason. So any Black students in there were fine. I considered them my friends.
You were all in the same playing field, all the same level.
Yeah, I don't remember being maybe a little afraid. In 1968, George Wallace was running for president then. Mm-hmm. So I was a little
like, oh no, I don't think that guy should be in charge of anything.
I was just a kid in school, so it didn't really affect me too much. But I think
there's a little anxiety of like that guy.
A little tension there.
That guy shouldn't be president. That's a little concerning. Oh, yeah. And then you had to deal with 2016, so that's just I don't know. That probably was probably worse.
Yeah, I've got to say, I don't think my grandparents or my parents raised me showing me racism. I'm not saying they weren't racist.
But they didn't actively.
But they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't teach it to me. They didn't tell me this is the way I had to be. They were more.
They were just kind of whatever.
Just regular people, and they also weren't churchy people.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't. They didn't go to church. They weren't. For whatever reason that is, they didn't fit in at church. They didn't. Well, I know my grandfather didn't go to church.
Mm-hmm.
I know why he didn't go to church. He used to. He knew all the hymns. He was a great guy. Loved my grandpa very much. My mother's dad. Mm-hmm. He chewed tobacco on occasion.
And they didn't like that.
They kicked him out. They kicked him out of church for chewing tobacco. And after that, he never, as far as I know, he never darkened the door of another church until he had his funeral.
Wow. I mean, I can see why. Like, they're going to judge me for what I do in my spare time. I mean, if he was, like, chewing tobacco and spitting it into the pews, sure. But, like, just...
He was honestly, he was
like,
a great guy.
Was,
I knew no problems with my grandpa of any bad things. He was a wonderful grandpa. You know, he'd take us camping and fishing and whittle, and he would just do. And he was a great guy.
So, yeah, I feel like a bad daughter because I always forget what year you were born.
You don't want me to say it.
You don't have to say that, but how much do you recall of JFK's assassination?
I was in elementary school.
Yes, you were pretty young. I was trying to remember how like your age range. You don't have to say when you were born. Just
I was in elementary school, and I went to school in Arkansas, and it was a talk about no air conditioning.
Yeah.
We went to school with no air conditioning, and I was on the second floor, and the windows are always wide open when it's that time.
That time of year,
hot enough, and I remember being there, and the news came in, and the teacher told us, and it was very, like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what
happened. Yeah.
And one of the other students made some sort of crack, and I don't know, some sort of like some crack. I don't know. I can't remember what it was, but he was kind of like a class clown, I guess, and the teacher shut him down so fast.
No, we're not doing that today.
Yeah. And so I don't really. I being a child in Arkansas, I don't really.
It wasn't really a big thing. I mean,
Well,
it was big, but you didn't affect you.
It just comes in waves. I mean, because it's the anniversaries and things like that. You're never done with it. You never are done with it, and you have certain realizations. One thing I hate, and I know you hate it too. And this is one of the reasons you do what you do. Is I hate fictionalizing real things. And telling lies, and now the lies are more important than the history.
It's like my long-term anger towards the Pocahontas movie.
I know there've been not documentaries, but movies and things like that made about that period of time and all. And I check and see how true to history they are, and I refuse to watch them.
Yeah,
like this Oliver Stone JFK thing.
Yeah,
I wouldn't watch it because I don't want to fill up my head with things that I might mistake,
fake versions of events.
It might be more real to me than the real thing, and I think that's so wrong for Disney or movies or anything. They just need to be as true as they can to the details that people are going to remember and learn from.
Speaking of that, though, we did watch a while back, and one of the other questions I was going to ask you is about Watergate and how you remember that, because we did watch The Lighthouse Plumbers together a little while ago, and because that was really historically accurate.
It up.
Like,
that
was that
really happened?
Was that guy really listening to Hitler speeches on record?
Googling it up, and it was true. It was very well done.
Yeah.
Watergate. So, my first election that I was able to vote in, old enough to vote. I was 18-ish in that age. Anyway, it was my first election to vote in. I voted for Nixon. Nixon was who I voted for. I remember he came to town one time. He threw town a little whistle stop while he was on a plane. And my dad, he loaded us into the car and said, we're going to show up. We're going to show him, because if he becomes president, he's going to remember that we had big crowd out here, and he's going to give us something. He's going to give us some pork barrel stuff.
I guess.
And so I went. I don't remember that, but I remember getting ready and going to this.
I think your dad might have had a fundamental misunderstanding of how the presidency works, but that's.
But anyway, that's what we did. I didn't do much stuff political when I was a kid with my parents, but I remember going to a couple of speeches and stuff. But then, this happened. The Watergate thing had, and like now, we don't get all the facts all at once.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
you always want to get your leaders that you have trusted a little bit of a benefit of the doubt sometimes, right, and maybe see things from their point of view. And then when he, stepped down and Ford pardoned him, and I said, well, I guess that's reasonable. I don't know. Maybe he must have done something wrong if he stepped down. He must have really done it.
Right.
But what was it he did? He just covered up. He just lied.
He just paid off a porn star. No, wait. Sorry, that's a different president.
It's a different one.
It's a different one. But
and we have a family tradition.
What's
every
family?
Thanksgiving.
Oh,
every Thanksgiving.
Yes,
and it is Nixon related.
It is Nixon related. No, we don't like say anything nice about Nixon. No, we watch. We listen to Alice's Restaurant, the extended edition, because the 18-minute and 30-second long was fine. There's nothing wrong with that version, but
we love
the 22-minute version is superior.
Alice's Restaurant, and we love all of that, and we listen to it
every time. Nixon, I see some confusion here. Some of you young people here. See, Nixon used to be the president of the United States, and he used to like to tape stuff. Yeah, and so we can
way ahead of his time.
Way ahead of his time. And everything was fine, and so people started playing back the tapes. Yeah, it's a great. Gotta listen.
It's great.
To it.
You got to listen to it.
Who knows? Maybe I'll edit this and splice in a little clip.
Add it to your Thanksgiving traditions,
right? Because it is about Thanksgiving, sort of. Kind of. It's also about the Vietnam War. That's another one.
War.
Vietnam, it was just recently I wrote an article for my Substack about comparing the current protests on campus to Kent State and some of the other reactions. So I was wondering if, do you remember anything about the Kent State situation?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. My dad, loved my dad. He supported me very much. He never tried to put me down for being female. He expected me to do my best all the time. I loved my dad, but at Kent State, when these people got murdered, got killed by the National Guard,
yeah.
Nixon. And he said they shouldn't have been there. They deserved it. And I said, no, Dad, no. We had.
So, my dad likes to say that my mom and I could talk until the world ended, and apparently we can definitely talk until the recording space on my phone is full, so you missed the last minute or so of wrap-up. Oops. Thank you for tuning in to hear me bitch about history. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe and make sure to visit bitchyhistory.com to sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter offers extra resources on the topics covered in all of our episodes, as well as on the topics covered in my videos on TikTok. Supporting the podcast is really easy. Spread the word to your friends, grab some fabulous Bitchy History merch off our website, or consider becoming a paid subscriber. Your support means the world to us.
History. 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 History.
History.
What a bitch, right?